Okay, well, terrific. Today on That's Classic, we have somebody that I've really been looking forward to talking to. I have to say, just a wonderful person and a wonderful actress. Amazing, amazing background. So I think you'll know her right off. My guest today was starred in Nanny and the Professor. Um, so much theater, so much of everything. But I'd like to introduce Juliet Mills. Juliet, how are you?
I'm fine, John. Thank you. Hello. Hi.
Hi. Hi. It's nice to have you on. So, my first question is, how do you remember like auditioning for Nanny and the Professor? Do you remember that, what process you went through for that?
Yes, very, very well. As if it was yesterday, actually.
Wow.
Um, I was doing a play in London in the West End, a restoration comedy called She Stoops to Conquer with Tom Courtenay.
Wow.
And it had been running about 6 months. It was very successful. And David Gerber was in London. He came and saw the play and he asked me to screen test for this series that he was doing called Nanny and the Professor. And
Wow.
so I said, sure. And I seem to remember that I actually did the screen test with my idea of a nanny, which is a sort of English Norland nanny, where they used to wear sort of Poe hats and, very actual sort of costume in a way, a real
Yeah.
nanny.
Yeah.
Uh, but anyway, I got it, and I didn't really realize what I got into. Actually, I thought it would just be a sort of a 13 episode thing. I didn't know I was committing to 3 years. Actually, it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how it happened. I screen tested for it in London, and then I actually flew to LA to do the pilot, and they gave me 3 weeks off from the play, and I did the pilot in Los Angeles, and then went back to finish doing the play for 3 or 4 more months. I can't remember.
When you came over to LA, had you been to LA quite a few times before?
Yes, I had actually. I'd been with Hayley and my family because the first time I ever came to LA was when she was doing Pollyanna
Oh
for
yeah.
Disney. And so that was my first time. At that point, I was in New York doing a play, and I got some time off, and that was my first visit to California, and
Oh,
I instantly fell in love with it, of course, as all English people do, because of the wonderful weather and the gardenias. In those days, I don't know, everybody seemed to have gardenias in their garden, and they
wow.
don't seem to have so many of them now. I don't know quite why. Maybe the atmosphere's changed or something. They don't thrive so well. I don't know. But
Yeah,
anyway,
they're beautiful.
yeah.
So, obviously you come from this I just amazing acting family. I mean, your father's John Mills, your sister's Hayley Mills. I read that your godmother is Vivien Leigh, your godfather was Noel Coward. I mean, how do you even write that, you know? What that's amazing. What was your father like? Like, do you remember him being like the, kind of the big star that he was? Or was he more like just the average guy?
He was. We were very aware that he was a very big star in England, internationally, really, but more in Europe. In those days, early on, um, he was very beloved in England. He was a national treasure, and we were very aware of that, and very proud of him. But he was always, just an ordinary guy. He was always the average man. He played that many, many times in film, and he was very approachable, very humble, very grateful, and felt very lucky to be earning a living doing what he loved to do. And he really made us all feel that way and grow up with that philosophy in life, actually. you know, to be grateful and feel lucky. How lucky we all are, he'd say. We'd be on some wonderful location with him and say, look, aren't we lucky? We must feel lucky and grateful for this. And that's been my MO all my life, really.
Wow, that's amazing. Were you with him by the way when he did Swiss Family Robinson?
Yes, actually, I was again doing a play in London, um, Peter Schaffer's first play, Five Finger Exercise, and we'd had a very long run in London, and then we were going to New York, which was also quite a long run. But I had 6 weeks off in between, and it just so happened that he was doing Swiss Family Robinson at the time in Tobago, you know, that beautiful
Wow.
Tobago. And so I was there for 6 weeks while they were filming that. They were there for quite a long time, I think. They imported all the animals that were in that film. And none of
Wow.
the islanders had ever seen any of those animals, elephants, giraffes, you know, all those things, those animals they put, and it was quite tigers and lions, and it was quite a big deal actually for that little island. I remember that time very well.
That is amazing. Yeah, I actually had on, I believe it was Joyce Bulifant, and, she had, been with, oh my gosh, now I'm having trouble remembering the actor's name.
James MacArthur.
Thank you. Yes, and she talked about her time there and stuff like that. How did you, was that, just an enjoyable time just being around the like, the villages and all of that?
Oh, it was wonderful. Absolutely. It, it was so unspoiled. And I remember that they had a house, Mummy and Daddy had a house, obviously Disney rented a house for them, and they had this wonderful black lady who did all the cooking and, you know, brought the bananas in on the top of her head and all of that.
Wow.
And it was a gorgeous, wonderful time. Yeah.
Wow, that is wild. So how did you know, growing up, you're around I saw, the Rex Harrison, David Niven. I mean, some of my favorite actors, by the way, in the world. Even I saw Marlon Brando. What do you recall being around these people? I mean, were you too young? Were you, were they kind of like family friends? What was that all
Yeah,
about?
they were family friends. That was the thing. And so one didn't realize as a child, you know, quite how famous they were, but you realized they were kind of luminous characters and talented people and artists, writers, actors. Uh, and they were friends. And my family, my mother and father entertained quite a bit. And I remember wonderful dinner parties that they would have. And, you know, Douglas Fairbanks, David Niven, Tyrone Power, Laurence Olivier, Vivien Leigh. I mean, you know, they knew them all. And everybody loved Daddy. He was a very funny man, as well as being a darling, lovely, handsome actor. He was very funny. And in those days, you know, there wasn't, even as a child growing up, I remember those dinner parties, became more aware as I got older, of course.
Yeah.
But in those days, there wasn't television. So there was more entertainment. They entertained themselves. I remember my father always played the piano, and Noel Coward always played the piano, and they'd stand around the piano and sing. And then they all loved jokes. Jokes. They were big jokesters, and
Wow.
they'd tell jokes. And I remember, I think it was Dougie Fairbanks, I think, who used to come with a sort of little black bag, like a doctor's bag, you know, with all jokes in, sometimes very rude jokes.
Wow, what an amazing experience. I'm sorry, I'm a huge fan of that whole period and all of that. I just find that fascinating. By the way, were you or was your father ever did they ever shoot at Ealing Studios? I
Oh,
happen to
yeah,
have spent
we,
a
we all
semester
did.
at Ealing, so
Yeah,
I love that.
Ealing Studios, Pinewood Studios, and Shepperton Studios. That's where those were the three big ones, and we all filmed there. Of course, earlier than that, in the 40s, it was Denham Studios,
Oh, wow.
which was a little studios, and that was where they shot a lot of movies, actually, in the old days. And a lot of the actors lived in and around Denham, including my father and mother,
Wow.
including David Lean, and there was a very tight little English group there, I must say. Trevor Howard, he was another one who lived
Oh,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
certainly. Was by the way, I mean, not that I last question on your father, then I want to talk about you, but fascinating man. When he won the Academy Award, was that like a big, you know, I mean, it is a big deal, but for him at the time that he won it, was that kind of like a wonderful culmination of like all the work he had put in all these years?
Yes, yes, it was. It was, and it was a huge thing for him. He was absolutely thrilled. I was with him that night. My
Wow.
mother and I were there, and yeah, and he didn't really expect it because a lot of the pundits on TV and things were thinking that he wouldn't, and he wasn't a favorite at all. So
Mhm.
when they had called his name, I remember he jumped out of the seat so high, like a sort of jack in the box. He went straight up in the air, and yeah, that was a very exciting night. And I think you know, they had that governor's ball afterwards, and of
Mhm.
course, so we went to that, and sitting at the table, and of course, everybody came to congratulate him. And so I think I met a lot of famous actors, actresses that night, I must say. No, it was very, very exciting. And funnily enough, David Lean, and he made 5 movies for David Lean,
Wow.
sent him a telegram. In those days, it was a telegram,
Right, right.
saying, congratulations, Johnny, at last, Tunes of Glory.
Oh,
Because Lean thought that Tunes of Glory was really, he should have been nominated for that performance. But of course, in those days, those British films didn't get the distribution that they do now, you know.
that's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. There's so many treasures that you can go back and watch. I love it. So at 16, you are doing five finger exercise, and you go to Broadway.
Yeah.
Um, what was that like as a 16-year-old? You're on Broadway. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal.
Well, by then I was 17.
Oh, you were 17. Well, of course. Well, there you
Going
go.
on 18 because the play ran over a year in London.
Ah, right.
And but I was very, very young. I was with a wonderful company. Brian Bedford was starring in it, and he was became my best friend. He and I played brother and sister.
Wow.
John Gielgud directed it,
Oh,
and he loved New York. And I remember the very first night we all arrived in New York. I remember John Gielgud walking us down Fifth Avenue, pointing out all the stores as though he owned them, you know, Cartier and Saks and St. Patrick's Cathedral. And he sort of walked a little bit ahead of us, pointing out all these famous places. It was unforgettable. As you can tell, I remember it very well.
I love it. I love it. I love every moment of it. I can picture that with John Gielgud, especially. Wow, just amazing. Well, by the way, was he a good director?
Yes, he was. He was a very good director. Um, Although, you know, there's a lot of talk about him because he always had a lot of ideas for one thing.
Hmm.
And he changed his ideas a lot. I mean, one day he'd want you to do one thing, and the next day he'd have another idea for that line or
Mhm.
that entrance or that something. And he was famous for his sort of faux pas and the things he would say. And I was reading a book recently about him, and it reminded me of a story that I'd actually forgotten. We did
Yeah.
a dress rehearsal, and at the end of it, he went, "This is a nightmare. What are you all doing?" And one of the actors said, "We're doing what you told us to do, John." And he said, "Well, you don't listen to me. You know I can't direct."
Oh, that is hysterical. I think, a lot of people think of him, from, the movie Arthur and, all these different things, but, yeah, it's pretty wild to think that he was a great director as well. I don't
Oh,
think
he was.
people
He
realize
was
that.
multi-talented, of course, and he was the
Mm.
greatest classical actor of his or any generation, actually.
Yeah.
But he and Olivier sort of vied for that title, but
Mm.
ultimately, I think he got it. He was an amazing actor and a very good director and wonderful fun and very funny and all of that. I was very lucky. It was my first professional job, and to be directed by Johnny G, that was quite a coup.
Yeah, that is quite a coup. That's amazing. I just love it. So then you also I saw you started to do films and you were in The Rare Breed with Jimmy Stewart, Brian Keith, Maureen O'Hara. By the way, I mean, what a cast right there. What what
Really.
was what was that experience like and what were they like?
Oh, it was a fabulous experience for me to suddenly be in California doing a western with
Oh,
Jimmy Stewart. I mean, even Daddy was jealous of that. He'd never done a western, and of course, Jimmy Stewart was such an icon.
mhm.
Um, it was a wonderful experience altogether. Maureen O'Hara, I had worked with her before. I did a I did a live TV recording of Mrs. Miniver in
Oh,
New
I
York
love that movie.
while I was doing the play,
Mhm.
Five Finger Exercise. So that was the first time I met her, and then of course she played Haley's mother in Parent Trap,
That's right.
and
That's right.
yeah, yeah, and then but that was after actually. So the second time I met her was The Rare Breed, and she was gorgeous. She was so beautiful. You
Oh.
couldn't take your eyes off her. And I don't know how old she was at that point, but I
Mhm.
suppose she must have been. Well, I don't know. You'll figure that out. Late
Yeah,
40s,
yeah,
50. I don't know, but her
yeah.
skin was like alabaster. Her red hair and those beautiful green eyes. She was just gorgeous and sweet to me. I adored her. And Jimmy was wonderful to me. I mean, the very first day I arrived, there was, 2 dozen red roses in my dressing room from him. And he was great to work with, of course, as all really good actors, great actors are. They lift the bar, they raise the bar.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience always, as well as an exciting, thrilling one too.
Yeah, was Brian Keith around during that time as well?
Yes, yes, he
Yeah.
was fun. Brian was lovely. Crazy. He played that crazy character, so
Yeah.
he played pretty crazy on as well. But he was great. Oh, it was a very, very happy time. Yeah, and we did a lot of the filming in a sound studio. Um, I don't know where. I think it was Universal,
Mhm.
but that whole sort of ranch area, the outside, it was
Yeah.
all in the studio. I mean, we did a 3-week location somewhere near Palm Springs. I remember that for all the exteriors.
Yeah.
But they built this house and the outside of it on the set. I mean, it was an extraordinary set, I must say. I'd never been on a big movie like that. I'd only done small films in
Mhm.
England.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've seen it, and I did not realize that was on a, sound stage. It looks like you're outside. I mean, I thought
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I agree. I've always been a fan of, I mean, even like Maureen O'Hara when I think of The Quiet Man and just I mean, she's
Oh,
such a strong
oh, she's wonderful.
presence. Yeah.
Yeah, and the bull in Rare Breed, the Vindicator, his name was. We all got very fond of him, and Jimmy particularly. And so he adopted him at the end of the film,
Oh,
and had taken to his ranch in, I think it was Montana. He had a ranch, so
oh my gosh.
Vindicator had a happy ending to the story as well.
Oh, what and there's the epitome of Jimmy Stewart. I mean, that's just fantastic. I love
Yeah,
hearing. And then the other one is, of course, Avanti, which I read, and I don't know if that's true, that you feel like that might have been your favorite film. But I mean, Billy Wilder and Jack Lemmon, I was like, come on. I mean, you're just you just go from one, amazing cast to another. I mean, incredible. What was Billy like as a director?
fantastic. I mean, to work with, that's why it was my favorite film, is because working with, a genius, two geniuses really,
Hmm.
Jack Lemmon and Billy Wilder. And Billy Wilder, legendary and one of the great directors of all time. And so it was an extraordinary experience for me, and also filming in Italy, or that Amalfi Coast, and
Oh,
a long location, and just a lovely role. And Billy had the set was always a happy set. Uh, Everybody had to do their job to their best ability. I mean, he expected, everybody. Promptness was one thing. Nobody could ever be late, which was why he hated working with Marilyn Monroe, because she was always late,
yeah.
and he didn't like being kept waiting. He he didn't want any of his lines changed. They were exactly as written. It was. Uh, he sort of edited as he went along in a way in his heads. You didn't do multiple takes. But one thing that I remember is that he very often had music playing on the set, which is a throwback to silent movies, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah, and particularly, I don't know if you remember the scene in the morgue with Jack Lemmon and I, when we go and identify the bodies
Yeah.
of our parents. And it was in the most beautiful little church in Italy, or in Ischia actually. And when I walked into that church with the sunlight coming through the stained glass window, and he had some of the music from the film, he loved all that Italian music,
Yeah.
folk music and everything, and he had that playing very quietly. And nobody, no, because on a set there's always noise and
Hmm.
people talking and big crew and blah, blah. It was so quiet, and it just set the scene so brilliantly for Jack and me to play that. Jack and I to play
Wow.
that rather emotional scene
Hmm.
about our parents. And I've often wondered since why directors never use that actually.
Hmm.
They don't use playing music on the set to sort of set an atmosphere or a mood. And if I was a director, I would.
Yeah,
It's very
definitely.
helpful to actors, I can say that.
Would he, although he wanted the lines read as written, would he allow you as an actress or actor to, bring your own take on that moment? Or was he very much like, this is how I want you to do it?
Oh no, exactly, totally. Didn't really tell you how to do it. It just, I mean, it, his direction was it was all there in the lines. The fact that he'd cast you, uh, was his vote of confidence that you would know how to interpret that line. He never gave a line reading or anything like that. And of course, it was such a happy set because he was such a funny, brilliant, witty man. It wasn't like he was telling jokes all the time or
Yeah.
anything, but his observations and perception of things were funny a lot of the time. And Jack, too, of course.
Oh
And
gosh.
there, you had an actor who's such a generous actor, gave so much, and so much of acting is reacting, as you
Hmm.
know.
I
If
do.
you've got, somebody who's just giving everything and being so real and true and looking into your eyes and believing what you say, it's half of it there for you.
Yeah, I agree. What, by the way, what was Jack like offset? You know, when you weren't shooting, what kind of a man was he?
He was just the same. He was light-hearted and fun. He loved life. He loved a glass of wine. He and Billy were very great friends.
Wow.
And his wife Felicia Farr was there, and on location. And Billy's wife Audrey was there. And he used to, I mean, I would have dinner with them at 5 out of 7 nights a week
Wow.
because he wanted to be sure that I ate a lot because, you know, I had to put on a lot of weight for the film. And he didn't want me to let up on that. So he'd always plying me with pasta and, you know, chocolate pudding. And oh my God, I I've never eaten so much in my life.
Well, if you're gonna shoot to put on some weight, there's nothing like Italy and all the pastas and all the rich food. I
That's
can see
right.
that.
That's right.
That that's funny. Let's go back to Nanny and the Professor because I'm sure people will say, "Hey, what happened? I thought I was going to talk about Nanny and the Professor." But I like to talk about your whole career. I go in and out. With Nanny and the Professor, we had Richard Long, which great actor himself. I mean, The Big Valley, 77 Sunset Strip, all of this. I was surprised. I had forgotten because I was a fan of those Mom Pa Kettle films. He had actually shot those as well. I didn't realize that. But what, one, what was your relationship like with him offset? And yeah, how about just that first? Yeah, how was your relationship with him offset?
Wonderful. We were great friends. He was a lovely, funny, sweet man, great to work with. We loved doing that show. It was really a fun show. We had wonderful guest stars and wonderful directors. We shot it at Fox, and I was renting a house just about 2 minutes away up Motor Avenue,
Sure.
and it was a very happy time. And the scripts were good, and you know, it the days just flew by really, and we all had a good time. The kids were great, and off screen, off camera, I was friends with the family. I was Mara, his beautiful wife, was a great friend of mine. I used to go to their house in Encino for sort of July 4th and things. You know, they treated me as a family really because I was a stranger to California. I
Hmm.
had, you know, I'd only been here, well, to do Rare Breed, and then I
Right.
came back to do Nanny. So no, it was I was very fond of them. It was a very happy time.
What first of all, were you shocked, you know, when he passed very young, and I read that he had pneumonia as a younger child or whatever, and it kind of affected him obviously later in life. So was that quite a shock when he passed?
Oh, yes, it was. It was and it wasn't, because it
Mm.
wasn't that he just had pneumonia as a child. He had a heart problem.
Oh, I
He'd
didn't know
had a
that.
heart attack when he was like 30.
Hmm.
And so he knew he had that, uh, you know, that problem. And he didn't look after himself in the
Oh,
way that he smoked heavily.
oh boy.
Uh, and he drank a lot. He never drank on the set or anything at
Hmm.
work, but he drank. He was a drinker, and
Hmm.
I mean, I remember him going, "Oh, it's 5 to 6. It's 5 to 6. The ice is melting." You know, and he meant, you know, it's time 6 o'clock. We finished,
Yeah,
and he was. Oh, hang on, I gotta let my cat out.
that's fine. Let the cat out.
There you are, Sally.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
he, yeah, he did like his booze, and he did drink every night. You know, he hung out with Lee Majors and David Jansen and all
Oh
that.
boy.
They used to tie one on uh, quite a bit, and so
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only saying that because when he died of a heart attack, I think he was 47,
It
wasn't he?
was. It was. That's correct.
47. Of course, I was shocked and devastated.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and he would talk about it. He said, you know I shouldn't be smoking. I know I've got a problem, but I got to live my life my way. I'm not going to, So there was a side of me that thought, well, yeah, I see. That's it. Very sad though. Very good actor. Wonderful, like comedian he was, like Gig Young. He was
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. And, fair enough. That's, and one that for that time too, that was very common that everybody get together and let's have drinks and all that. But I also, that's very interesting about that. He also was like, you know what, I have to live my life. I have to still do who I am. And that's
Yeah.
interesting. You also had Kim Richards, who I know she went on, she did like Escape from Witch Mountain and all of that. What was she like as a child actress?
I didn't we didn't keep in touch after Nanny, but
Hmm.
no, she was a sweet little girl. She was a little bit spoiled,
Mhm.
little bit, and she had a stage mother in the true
Yeah.
sense of the word. She was very young. I think when she started, she must have been like 5 or 6 or
Yeah, I
something.
think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, she was a sweet little girl, but at the same time, I've heard her a couple of times saying to her mother, "Get out of my chair,"
Oh,
on the set.
wow.
I mean, she did uh, do very well for a while. I think
She
Disney
did.
picked her up and Witch Mountain and all that, and
Yeah.
I think in later life she's had some problems. I haven't been in touch with her, unfortunately. We were supposed to do a celebrity signing together a few
Hmm.
years ago, and I was looking forward to that. But uh, no, she didn't. She
In-
didn't. Ultimately, she didn't do it, so I haven't seen her.
Very interesting. Hey, by the way, I mean, totally segueing in a completely different direction. Did we had mentioned Vivien Leigh earlier? Were you in touch with her? Like, as
Oh yes, all through my life. Well, of course, she never had children with Larry
Mhm,
Olivier.
mhm,
She had a daughter when she was married very young earlier, called Suzanne, very sweet lady.
hmm,
But her union with Sir Laurence did not bring them children.
mhm.
And so, in a way, I was a surrogate daughter, not just
Oh,
goddaughter.
wow.
And so I spent a lot of time with her throughout my life because they were best friends, the four of them, mummy and daddy, and those two.
Hmm.
And, they hung out together. They had dinner, they went on holidays, all of that. And so I really grew up with her. And as an adult, we stayed very much in touch. And our relationship changed because it was always the little girl and Auntie Viv
Yeah.
and all that. But then when I started working, at one point we were in New York together, and she was in one play and I was in another.
Wow.
And so we were adults together. And I adored her. She had a huge influence on my life, as far as style, class, grace, charm, manners, everything. And she was also very, very funny. She had a wonderful sense of humor. And I adored her. Yeah.
Was she, obviously she became maybe bigger than even a movie star when when people think of Gone with the Wind, they think of like the all-time classic. It's like Citizen Kane, something like that. Um, was she always like you know, in that, like, did she enjoy being in that place of, kind of
Um,
weird?
I I think so. Yes, I think so. I mean, they were all so glamorous. Was she and Larry, when they walked into a room in their, when they were at the height of their fame and beauty,
Yeah.
I mean, my father used to tell me, say that there's just everybody just stopped talking, you
Wow.
know, and turned their heads to look at them. They were so beautiful. And I think she enjoyed that, her fame to a degree,
Hmm.
but she was never, in my vision, vain or stuck up, or she always would talk to people just like an ordinary person, but they did live a very glamorous life, and enjoyed their life very much.
Was he, he's on a level that, as well, where I think most people, it's almost like you just say Laurence Olivier and you immediately think of, class and, at the top of the acting, tier, all of that stuff. When he was, obviously you got to see him more in a very, personal light. Like you said, he's just with your dad, whatever. Was he, very prim and proper in that, in a normal setting, or was he a little more loose and
No, not at all. I mean, rather than prim and proper, I'd say naughty boy would be a better description. No, very normal, enjoying ordinary things in life, a good glass of wine, a wonderful meal, you know, traveled, or just today at home at their house in Notley Abbey. Just very, very normal. No airs and graces at all, at all.
Oh, I love hearing that. Another one I saw was which is, normally I would be the Love Boat. That's, ask you about it. But in your case, if I'm not mistaken, you were actually on with your father and Haley. Am I right on that?
That's right. That's Aaron Spelling, dear Aaron, who was such a loyal producer, and I did 8 Love Boats altogether.
Wow,
and
I didn't realize that.
and one year he said to me, he said, you think that Haley and John would come over and do a Love Boat if I brought them over? How about if I brought them over around Christmas, so you'd all have Christmas together in California? I said, Aaron, just make the offer. I said, there's no question, they'll be on those planes right away. And of course they were, and it was a very fun, lovely time. He was just a wonderful producer, Aaron Spelling. I wish he was around today. I'd be working more. But anyway, of course, in Love Boat there are always 3 segments,
Correct.
and so we each had a storyline, really, and so we didn't actually. There was never a scene where we all were in the same scene together, which was kind of a shame.
It is a
Uh,
shame.
but I think I had one little scene with Daddy. I think I must have bumped into him on the poop deck or something.
Oh my gosh, that is something else. I love it. Were those fun to just shoot? You said you shot 8 of them. Was that just a
Oh,
fun thing to
great
do?
fun! They built that whole ship. I mean, boat was on a soundstage. I mean, they
I
had
didn't
2
know.
sound stages. One was the outside of the boat, as it were, and where you'd land, and the other was the inside of the boat, which, like, if you go to Grey's Anatomy set, it's like going into a hospital. You went onto the soundstage of Love Boat, and it was like you were on a ship. The cabins and I mean, extensive,
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful set. And they did sometimes do actual cruises. And I did one, actually. I did one where you actually went on a cruise to Mexico or something, which was quite fun. But you really felt like you were on a boat when you were on
On
the
the set.
stage.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that. I had no idea they had the 2 separate stages. That's actually kind of cool. The Oh my gosh, there's so many things that I could talk to you about. You're amazing. A lot of you were on a ton of shows too. I saw The Man from Uncle. You were on that with of course Robert Vaughn, David McCallum. Any recollection of that? I always as a kid, I love that show. So yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah, just that was, I just did one of those that was
Yeah.
guest star and loved working with those guys. I think I worked more with David, but I don't really remember. It's a very long time
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah. Sure,
John.
sure,
But
sure.
it was very happy experience, and of course, it was a huge success, that show, and
Oh,
um,
big time.
yeah, big time. Yeah.
Yeah. What the other one, it's and once again, you may not even remember on this one or not, and I can't blame you. I mean, if anybody ever looks at your credits, you have so many. I can understand how you might not remember it, certain ones. But there was Alias Smith and Jones, and I just was curious about that because of Pete Duel, that he went unfortunately
Yes.
on and committed suicide. What did you work with him at all in that, or
Yes, yes, I
yeah,
did.
yeah.
It was a lovely guy, charming, very good actor, a serious actor, kind of a bit method,
Oh,
but but I remember it being a lovely experience. It's my cat down here. That's why I'm.
that's okay. That's what I love about these. You have life around you.
It was a lovely experience, and we shot, I think, on the Fox Ranch. There was a lot of exteriors, and it being a western and everything, and I was thrilled to do it. Uh,
Mhm.
as a matter of fact, and very, very, very shocked when he died. Well, there was no inkling of somebody who was tormented or
Mhm.
upset or had some problem. I would never have known working with him at that point. No. Why does anybody know why?
I don't know. I have heard depression, but
Yeah,
sometimes, what we see and then what happens, when someone goes home is a totally different experience, I guess. But
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
I felt the same way. I remember when that happened, that hurt.
yeah.
What another one is Harry O, which is David Jansen, which I know you had mentioned him earlier. He's another one of those kind of enigmas in my mind. Like, what was he like? You don't hear much about him offset, you just picture him in like,
No, no. I think he was a very private person.
hmm
But but I did meet him a few times also at Richard Long's house because, as I said, he was one
right.
of that group.
Yeah,
Play pool and drink beer.
yeah.
Uh, but he was lovely to work with. Very serious actor, very good, very professional, and it was a nice show to work on. And he wasn't very outgoing, but
Mhm.
he was very, very charming to me, as I remember anyway.
So he did keep more of a private
Yes, yes, he did.
feeling.
Yeah, yeah, he wasn't like Jack Lemmon or
Yeah,
Richard Long. He was obviously a more introverted sort of
right.
person.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, seriously, you've been in so many things. You mentioned Grey's earlier, Grey's Anatomy. What was that set like? Because I've had a couple of people that have worked on that on the show, and they've spoken about it. Everybody's had their own take. What was your experience like working on Grey's?
It was great. It was a bit scary. Of course, it was also during the pandemic, so
Ah,
there were so many restrictions, and protocol, COVID protocol every day, and tests, and the whole crew had to wear masks all the time.
wow.
We actors wore masks until the actual moment of shooting, and I found that rather uh, off-putting.
Yeah, I'm
It
sure.
changes the things when you can't see people's faces, and
Yeah,
you never know if they're smiling at you or not. You know what I mean?
right, right. Yeah.
uh, so I found that a bit difficult, but otherwise, I loved working on Grays. It's so brilliantly organized. They've been doing it so long. It's
Oh,
like a perfectly oiled machine. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody does everything very efficiently. Lovely crew, good actors, a nice cast, and I had fun on it. I must say, I had all these surgeries. I don't know how I survived, but the last one I had was brain surgery, and
oh
my
wow.
God, And they're very strict about authenticity, medical authenticity. And it's I mean, they had, for instance, for my brain surgery, they put a sort of a hat on me, like a cap thing, that had my brain or a brain in it, you know, like,
Oh, wow.
so that when they do the surgery, you know, and it was a close up of her with pincers picking out of something out of your brain. I mean, it's real. Of course, you have to lie there for hours and hours.
Oh my gosh.
Such a performance to get up and get back, because you've got all these things attached to you, you know, all this breathing and thing and thing. So you literally think, well, it's not worth being unhooked and hooked back up.
Yeah.
So don't drink too much water and stay there.
Wow, that is amazing. I never knew that that's what it's like when you're shooting that, and that they actually have like a device that's over your head. I just assumed those were like, second unit shots, so to speak.
No, no, no. It's
Wow.
amazing. Their medical staff, people in the company. I mean, the main supervisor of all the medical, she's now producer, but she's always on the set, and she was wonderful with me. It was a lovely experience, I have to say. Yeah.
Fantastic. Gosh, I love hearing about that. You give so many great details, Juliet. I just love it.
Yes, I
It's
do,
like,
and I remember a lot. Your questions sort of, you know, trick my mind, and I bring things
well,
back.
they're wonderful, so I can't thank you enough on those. The other one was a couple that I've never had anyone on the show that was on Ellery Queen with Jim Hutton. Any recollection of that experience?
Oh no, not too much, and
Yeah,
I don't know why. Uh,
yeah,
I even forgot that I'd done that. I
that's
don't
funny.
know why.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like I said, I take that as no problem. I mean, you're like I said, you have had so much. Another one would be Columbo with Peter Falk. Any recollection of that one?
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I was very impressed to do that, and and very impressed to work with him. He was fabulous. He was in the character all the time. I don't know. There was no difference. Probably off. I didn't know him socially, but
Right.
on set, he was. You know, he was that character totally, and and a very, again, very efficient, hardworking crew. They worked long hours, you know, on those television shows,
Hmm.
and everybody adored him and respected him. And no, that was a fun show to do. Yeah,
Yeah, Peter Falk. I mean, that character is like iconic. Yeah,
yeah.
they've been part of that. The and another one I've had a few people on that have spoken about Murder She Wrote and Angela Lansbury, and I I I have to admit I'm fascinated by. I always, I see her up there like with your father. I mean, just an icon. What was it like did you know her, by the way, before you had done Murder She Wrote?
Yes, I did. I did know her because she was a friend of my father's,
Mm.
and you know, she was a movie star before she was
Oh,
you know,
that's right.
TV star.
Oh yeah.
And I think he met her during the time that she was making movies in the 50s or whenever. So I
Hmm.
had met her before, and she loved Daddy. And so and of course, she was wonderful to work with. And my goodness, she employed all her friends on that
Hmm.
show,
Hmm.
all her actor friends. She was very, very loyal, and a very loyal. She had a great gig, and
Hmm.
if she could extend, you know, a helping hand to an actor who hadn't worked for maybe a year, she would do it. She
Yeah.
was one. Yeah.
That says so much about her. Yeah, that's what other people have said, by the way. And I've heard like stories where she stayed on set just to have the person be able to react off her and not just someone else, you know,
Yes.
is amazing.
My cat wants to get out. He's been mewing
He wants to go, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
They always do. They always want it right at that moment when you're in the
I
middle of
know, I
I know.
know.
It's so funny. So obviously, your husband, Maxwell Caufield, you both are doing The Elephant Man, and, we're doing The Elephant Man, and that's when, you met each other and fell in love. What, I guess, when did it hit you guys? Like, was it at, when you first met? Did it build to that? What happened?
Well, we met. We were rehearsing The Elephant Man in New York City,
Mhm.
and we were rehearsing on the top of the Minskoff building, which was on the 45th floor in
Wow.
Times Square, which
Wow.
was an incredible place to rehearse because there were windows all around and you could see. I mean, we saw the most amazing sunsets and everything. Anyway, that's beside the point. It was a very extraordinary place to
Yeah.
meet.
Yeah.
And we had met briefly before because we both auditioned to do this. We auditioned in New York City
Oh,
to do the tour of the Elephant Man, and so I did actually meet him in a dressing room at the Golden Theatre before we went and both did separate auditions
mhm.
on stage for Jack Hofsis, the director. But and I was terrified. I thought, oh my goodness, because he was in a play in New York, a very successful play in New York called Class Enemy, and it was there was a big buzz around it. Uh, and I saw when I walked into the dressing room, he was sitting facing the corner, obviously with the script, I think. And I thought, oh my God, I hope I don't have to audition with him. He's obviously a method actor or something. I'm thinking that. As it worked out, they decided that we should not audition together. We'd do it separately.
Hmm.
But we both got the part. So the next time we ever saw each other was in the rehearsal room the first day. And we were instant friends. It was like past life recall.
I was
Definitely.
wondering about that. I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, hello, how are you? Where have you been? It was that kind of feeling. And we had a wonderful rapport and talked a lot. And uh, um, yes, it was pretty instant, really. But that recognition, feeling of familiarity and uh, trust uh, came first. And then I remember the first time he held my hand crossing the road in New York, it just felt so right, him holding my hand. And it went on from there. And actually, we uh, we were in Florida, we were in Palm Beach, and that's where we opened. And we went to Fort Lauderdale, and it was in Fort Lauderdale that he proposed. And we had only known each other about 6 weeks, I suppose, really. And I
Oh,
said, yeah.
wow. 6 weeks? Wow.
Well, there was just no question. It was just, I just want to be with you forever. I want to share everything with you. I want to travel with you. I want to see sunsets and have dinners.
That's fantastic. That really is, and I've seen the 2 of you, like, through the years together. You both beam. Um, the, that's really interesting. It's so funny that you said that, 'cause I sincerely, I was going to ask you if you had that, because I know that I also read that you do have a belief, some belief system in, like, metaphysics and, whatever, all that stuff, and so I almost was curious, like, did you have that sensation when you saw each other, like, from almost like a past life? And that's pretty cool.
But I mean, I'm sure that's happened to you.
Oh,
With
yeah.
Yeah, you meet somebody that there's such instant recognition and such familiarity that you think I must know this person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a good beginning. Of course, I did. That's why Nanny was such a good part for me, because Nanny believed in, ESP and
Mhm.
metaphysical things
Right.
and the power of the mind, all of that, and I do too. So, yeah.
Yeah, that magical quality, that is
Yeah,
what I wanna say,
yeah.
yeah, I gotcha. Very interesting, my gosh. The another one that not that I know the, movie, I'll be honest with you, but I saw it in the credits, I was like, "Oh, I'm just curious." It sounds like you shot this not too long ago, was The Pool Man with Annette Bening and, directed by Chris Pine, who I've interviewed his father, great man, and, I just was curious what Chris was like as a director.
Well, he was lovely, but I must say, to put that credit is a bit saucy of me, really, because literally, if you sneezed with your eyes closed, you'd miss me. But I did have a fun part. We were shooting in Pasadena in a tremendous heat wave in Pasadena, in California. That it was
Yeah.
about 109, 110 or something.
Oh.
We were shooting in this wonderful big old house, but there was no air conditioning. And my scene was in bed,
Oh, boy.
fully clothed with a big duvet on.
Oh, no.
And I mean, the discomfort of that was unbelievable. There was a mopping me the whole time, so I wasn't going to be looking sweaty.
Oh.
Chris was wonderful. He was also starring in the movie. So
Oh,
he was, he had two hats on, kept changing hats, but very nice guy, very, very clever, very good actor. And it was everybody on the set seemed to be very happy and happy to be there, involved in the project. But almost the best thing, part of it for me, was meeting Annette Bening.
mhm.
And we hung out in the green room a lot of the day. And I had a chance to talk to her and get to know her. And I've always been a great admirer of hers. I think she's a wonderful, wonderful actress, and she's a lovely, lovely lady. And so that was the bonus for me of doing Pool Man.
Yeah, I can see it. It's funny, when I see Annette Bening, I almost feel like she's in the wrong era, and I mean that in the best way. I feel like you could have put her in that time of your father and she would have just been toe to toe with those people, you know?
Yes, yeah, I agree. She has that sort of quality, doesn't she? Of
Yes,
yeah, it's sort of she's wonderful. She's a one. Did you see her in Naiad this year?
I did, yes,
What a
yes.
performance! What courage!
Yeah,
I, oh,
she became her. I mean, it's just that easy.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
What
brilliant.
would when you were in the green room, what was she, I guess there's another one that's a bit of an enigma. What is she like as just a regular person?
Just charming and friendly, interested in you and your life, and not at all stuck up or
Mhm.
no, just an ordinary actress, a real actor's actress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
could see that.
still use the word actress myself.
Yeah,
I know everybody calls everybody actors now, but I like the word actress, like mistress.
right, right. I get it. I totally get it. I hear you. Um, my last one, because I don't want to keep you too long, but I although I could talk to you all day, you're wonderful. Is Some Kind of Beautiful with Pierce Brosnan and Salma Hayek. Um, what one did you know Pierce before? And no, no, or
No, I didn't, and I don't know how that came about, really. It was just, I don't think anybody's seen that movie. I haven't anyway.
yeah, yeah.
I
No, I
don't-
saw it in the credits. I was like, wow, Pierce Brosnan,
yeah,
Hayek.
I did a day's work on that, and I was playing Malcolm McDowell's wife in a
Oh
scene
wow.
with Pierce, and I was very impressed to be there and meet Pierce Brosnan, and I had met him a few times socially, but I was thrilled to be. I don't know how it came about. It was just an offer. I didn't have to audition for it or anything. And I suddenly found myself there, in this room with those two.
Wow,
It's
wow.
fun. And he was charming and you know, a great gentleman. Yeah.
By the way, had you you said Malcolm McDowell, had you known him before?
Never. I'd never even met him.
Oh,
No.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason, I would have thought that he might have circled in at some point. You know what I mean? Within,
Yes. Well,
the
it's
same.
funny you should say that because now where I live, he lives very close by. And so I have seen him a few times socially now. But this is after the film.
Oh,
Yeah.
how funny. How funny.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I do have one more, and I don't know if you have any recollection. If you don't, it's okay. But Marcus Welby with Robert Young, I saw that that was in your credits. Do you recall that?
I do. I do. I don't recall what I played.
Hmm.
I don't know if I played a nurse because I play a lot of nurses
Yeah.
and housekeepers, nurses and housekeepers. But I do remember being very, sort of rather awed to be working with Marcus Welby because that was one of the TV shows, black and white, wasn't it,
Yeah,
originally?
yes, that's right. And then it went
Uh,
to color, but it did
yeah,
start out,
uh,
yeah.
that I saw in England.
Oh,
So
wow.
I did know him quite well. Yeah, yeah. I mean, know him of him. You
Right.
know, I knew who I was working with, so I was very impressed to be working with Marcus Welby. I mean, he was very famous, and I enjoy. I always loved doing hospital shows. I don't know.
Was he welcoming on the set? Because I mean,
Very,
he was also it was his show. I mean,
yeah,
literally.
absolutely. And you felt it was his show. He was very revered, respected, and loved. People loved him. He had such a lovely personality. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
Marcus Welby, well, that was him.
Wow.
Him, one and the same, you know.
Wow, interesting. By the way, do you still stay in touch with Hayley? I mean, are you still close?
Oh gosh, yes. Oh, every other day we're on the phone. We're always planning to see each other. And in fact, this year we've been invited to do the Turner Classic Movie cruise, and we're both going to do it together. They're going to show a couple of our films, and we're going to talk about it and all
Oh,
that.
is that wonderful? When she was kind, like you said, you were there with her with Pollyanna, and she had the Parent Trap, and I mean, she's had quite a career herself. Is it for the two of you? Was it a competitive thing, or was it more like, a cheerleader thing? Like I'm so,
It was never competitive because I started in the theater, and the theater was my kind of great love. And
Mhm.
she burst upon the scene as a child, sort of not even knowing what had happened. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Mhm.
like, and we never seemed to, maybe now, later in life, we could go for the same parts or have, unbeknownst to us. I don't know. But in those days, we never were up against each other for anything. I had my career and she had hers. And from the moment I saw her in Tiger Bay, you know, when she
Yeah,
was about 12 years old, the
yeah.
most
W-
wonderful
With your
child
dad. Yeah,
born with my father.
yeah.
You know, I just thought she was wonderful. We're big fans of each other, which is good.
I love hearing that. By the way, Walt Disney, that I understand that he saw her in Tiger Bay, and that's how she got cast in Pollyanna.
Yeah, actually, it wasn't him that saw it. It was Mrs. Disney that saw the film in London.
Huh.
And she called Walt and said, I think I found your Pollyanna. Yeah, it was Mrs. Disney. And then, of course, he must have seen the film and
Yeah.
decided for himself. But she was the one who actually saw it first.
Did he come on the set of Pollyanna? Because I thought that was on location, like up towards like St. Helena, Napa, that area.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if he was on location, but he was always around. I bet he was.
Mhm.
Who'd give up the chance to go to Napa Valley or
Yeah.
Carmel?
Right.
You know,
Right. Was
Carmel, I bring too.
did
Yeah.
you get a did you get a chance to meet him?
Oh, I met him a few times. Yeah, but I didn't. I don't remember going to the set on that. But I met him. I went to his house and sat in his movie theater and had ice cream sodas, and he took us to Disneyland, and we jumped all the queues.
Oh, come on. Are you serious? You were with Walt Disney at Disneyland.
Yeah.
What was he? What was he like? I mean, was he like a big child kind of guy?
Yeah, he was. He was like just Uncle Walt. You know, he just enjoyed everything so much, all his creations and his world. You know, he had a flat, he had an apartment above the fire station in Disneyland where he used to stay.
Wow.
And he'd stay there because he liked being there at night when nobody else was there.
Oh,
He enjoyed everything. He was a magical person and powerful, personality too. But he was a benign uncle as well. You know, it was all those things.
Juliet, thank you so much. I mean, really, thank you so much. I enjoyed every minute of it, and it's just such a wonderful thing that you just open up and you know.
Well, it's a pleasure. I've been enjoying reminiscing with you. Really,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
been a pleasure for me too.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you, and I will be in touch. Thanks a bunch.
Okay, bye, John.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, thanks for listening, and definitely hit the subscription button. As well, hit the notification bell so that you'll know when my next episode is released. In addition, check out some of my other interviews if you haven't had a chance. Eric Roberts, Henry Winkler, Jerry Mathers from Leave It to Beaver. There's so many. Enjoy.